Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to introduce ourselves in the rooms. My name's Ian Thompson. I'm here with colleagues Tom Proctor-Legg and Rob Klassen, and online we've got colleague Rebecca Snell. So really great to have you here. Thanks so much for coming this afternoon. We're really excited to launch this webinar with our project. Picture this, the Robson Orr Visual Literacy Initiative, and there's a lovely quote there from Alison Cole to start us off about looking purposefully in order to see better. This project is part of a collaboration between the Department of Education here at University of Oxford, with the Robson Orr Foundation, with the Government Art Collection, with Art UK, and with our own gardens, libraries and museums department here at Oxford. So our aim is a really ambitious one. We believe that the power of visual literacy has an infinite reach, and we're hoping to reach thousands of children on this project over the next 3 years, exploring how engagement with artworks, both digital and physical, can improve the young people's critical engagement with the world around us, the contextual awareness and understanding of people and events, and communicative skills of active listening and considered speaking. It's a really big target. We know that reaching thousands of children in primary schools is a big thing to do, but we've had really good engagement so far, with a constant and consistent flow of interest from both schools and other people in the community, both people in the arts community, but also people within the education community. And we know there's a real underlying sense this project offers a chance to explore what teachers and school leaders have been seeing in the classrooms when they do bring in art as a stimulus after the years of austerity, when art's really been squeezed out of primary. They can see the difference it makes in all youngsters and youngsters who are disadvantaged, perhaps in particular, both in their schools and their classrooms. And we think that this ability to read in this way, to be visually literate, is imperative in a time of misinformation that the young people face, of divisive views in our communities, and polarization that's taken place both outside the schools and within the schools, but also the increasing levels of young people not in education or employment or training, the rising of mental health issues, particularly social, emotional, mental health issues, attendance issues at school, and children just not feeling belonging. These are the things that we hope that our project will address.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. So we know a few things about visual literacy, but let me give you a quick definition just before we look at some of the research that we already have conducted. So we're studying visual literacy, and what we mean by that is we're looking at a set of abilities that enable people to effectively interpret, evaluate, create visual artworks particularly. So visual literacy skills really equip a child or an adult to understand and analyze these contextual and cultural, aesthetic, and technical components of various kinds of artwork. And so what do we already know about this? Well, we know that children naturally engage with visual information from infancy. I have a 7-month-old granddaughter, and she looks at everything, and she analyzes and explores the world through her eyes, through her sense of vision. But visual literacy itself is something that must be taught. So prioritizing it in education helps children move beyond kind of surface observation to a deeper understanding of visual context. And this is really important, not just to deal with artworks, but to navigate a whole range of visual stimuli that children encounter. And the problem is, we don't know very much about how young children develop visual literacy, and bringing artwork into schools can promote these skills. And there's evidence that shows that exposure to different kinds of artworks enhances children's ability to discuss and interpret visual elements. So we don't know very much about how it develops through engagement with art, and that's what we're trying to do, and exploring its links with oracy and other outcomes, including things like well-being, critical skills, and how it changes over time. And so most arts programs focus on visits to galleries, but that's something that excludes children from under-resourced or maybe remote schools. And since structured arts participation supports all these really positive variables, the cognitive, emotional, social development, that limited access to visual literacy opportunities really reinforces different kinds of educational inequity. So picture this, that's our project. We want to understand how engaging with visual art impacts children's development and their educational development across different areas. So we're trying to transform our understanding of how these things have an impact on oracy skills, academic and social development, and how it develops using different modalities, so exposure to digital art and physical art. And we're also exploring how teachers can better support visual literacy in themselves and in their children. And so it brings together the groups of researchers from all these different groups that we work with, including our own Department of Education, Art UK, Government Art Collection, including the 1010 Prints, which is something that is sponsored by the Robson Orrs. And we're working with mostly with primary children, but also that transition into secondary schools, and especially those schools that are least likely to access arts programs. So we have a strategic sampling approach where we involve students from low arts engaged areas, and it's co-designed with teachers, our project. And our main research questions then are, what is the impact? What are the key elements of a visual literacy curriculum that's effective? What is the impact of a visual literacy intervention on students' visual literacy, of course, oracy, and academic and social outcomes? And does the modality matter, that physical versus digital artworks? How does it evolve over time, especially from primary into that transition to secondary? And how can visual literacy development be optimized for all students, including those with special education needs?
Thanks, Rob. So we've already begun this project in some way. We've just conducted a pilot with over 120 young people. And as Ian said earlier on, we're looking at thousands. So this is the beginnings of something very exciting. We have a visual literacy measure that builds on the work of John Callow from 2008, looking at specific domains of composition, affect, and critical thinking skills. And we're also looking to measure student well-being and their sense of belonging within their schools. So to do that, and we've tried this and tested it for our pilot, we've produced a student assessment tool, which is very simple. It's a simple student booklet that's printed and delivered to schools that comes alongside a PowerPoint for teachers. And essentially it asks questions which are based around an artwork. Everything's included, and including all the packaging material to send it to and from us. There's no marking required. Our team takes care of all the analysis. We're also collecting student demographics from schools. So, we're very interested in personalized experiences, and therefore we're asking schools to complete a very simple spreadsheet that tells us about student age, premium status, SEND status, gender, ethnicity, and arts-based in-school and non-school based arts-based experiences. Now, that is fully anonymized. And we have a unique identifier for each student, which helps us with our analysis. As I said, it's very simple, and it starts with self-efficacy questions within those 3 domains. And you can see that we've got a scale here that we have a short activity to help young people understand, and then they score themselves how they feel they are in terms of their competence within visual literacy. But it doesn't end there. There's an opportunity for them to, in written form and in verbal form, tell us about their visual literacy skills and demonstrate them. We'll also be observing them, speaking to their teachers, and looking at the outputs that they create following the project. So that's our measure. But in addition to that, we have these fantastic interventions which come through our partners, both Art UK and the Government Art Collection. And these really are two modalities that we're exploring. On the left, in this image, which is a screenshot from the Art UK website, we're signposting the Superpower of Looking tool, which is an innovative, inclusive program, as it says, that seeks to transform the visual literacy skills of every child. There's a number of online resources that teachers will be able to use and follow along in their classrooms, and it can be tailored to their needs. So that's one intervention which is completely available online. And then the second intervention, which you see on the right-hand side, this is Denzel Forrester and his work, Alter, which we'll be actually taking into schools across the country alongside other artworks. And that's part of the 10-10 prints. Within that intervention, we'll be seeing young people having an opportunity to see the real physical artwork, be creative to build their own artworks around it, and to be reflective, thinking and using their visual literacy.
Thank you so much. So now over to what we will offer to schools as a result. Every school will receive a tailored report summarising your school's results. So therefore you can look at how your children have changed and grown, but also you will have data involving the well-being and social, emotional, mental health of your students over that period of time. We are also going to be offering free CPD sessions that will be led by GLAM, so Gardens, Libraries and Museums at the University of Oxford, for any members of staff within the schools of people who are interested in joining. There will, of course, be access to the national report and key findings that will show the impact across the UK. So you'll be able to have a look at your area and also how your school looks in comparison to other schools, which we hope will create a really supportive environment and a network between schools too. We spoke to an Ofsted inspector very recently about this as well, and he has mentioned the fact that this could contribute to the personal development framework, which obviously is part of what Ofsted inspectors look at when they go into schools. You will obviously be part of a role in a landmark study shaping the future best practices for arts in education. And we really hope that feels very exciting, that this is something that is happening in conjunction with you as practitioners and looking at how we can make sure that what is being offered in the classroom best reflects what you as teachers know your students need and what your students are able to show us that they are benefiting from. So it's a really exciting project. So some feedback. These are just three really quick quotations. So the Government Art Collection and Art UK have, of course, been working with school-aged children for a long time now. And there is an absolute plethora of detail in terms of what we can show about how engaging these activities are. So the first one, which is in blue, is they were thrown into something different, and I'd love to do more. And I think that that's something which can be really tricky and can feel quite difficult for members of staff to, particularly if they aren't art specialists, and so we really hope that opportunity will be positively received. The one in green is from a pupil who was involved in the Superpower of Looking, so Art UK's project, because seeing and judging is one of the skills that you're gonna need in life, so practicing it and using it more often is gonna really help you out. And we also looked at the idea of the fact that this is breaking down barriers for SEN and EAL learners. There is so much more feedback, and if that's something you would like to see more of in order to help you make the decision to join this project, please do let us know. So next steps then for getting involved. After this, we will share this webinar with you. We will also send a link to a form, which we would love for you to sign up for, and it will ask just some basic information about your school, what you do at the school, whether or not you've been involved in any art activities and where you are based. We will then contact you directly and we will talk about your experience, and we will try and work out some dates to start this moving on. As Tom mentioned before, there are the two different interventions. Now, what's really excellent about this project is it offers complete flexibility. The Superpower of Looking is a digital intervention that can be used in your own time, both in lessons or in after-school clubs. It is really entirely flexible, and we have seen it used in a variety of different ways, which again, we are happy to work with you on. So if you could sign up to this, then we will get back to you. And it offers you obviously this opportunity to be part of something which is a really large and exciting study. We're going to move on now to the Q&A.
Okay, thanks, Rebecca. That's great. I believe people should be able to put their questions into the chat. So if you do have a question in this webinar and you have questions, feel free to add them. But we've already had some questions being sent in to us, and there's a few themes that we can kind of pick up on, really. The first theme is that it's great that we've had some involvement from schools locally. We're here sat in Oxford today. We've had schools from across Oxfordshire interested already, and nationally, but we also have some international interest. So, Rob, if I can ask you just to kind of speak to that, how can schools or maybe researchers on an international level be involved in this project?
Yeah, well, we're looking at it not just as a 3-year project, but as a project that we hope to extend after those 3 years. So we're really mostly focused on the UK for the first 3 years, and then we'll be extending it and looking at other opportunities, primarily in year 3, and then after that year 3.
That's great, thank you. And yeah, just building on that, we've had questions sent in about the theoretical foundations for the project, and I know you've spoken a bit about that, and I've talked, maybe mentioned those domains, but do you want to build on that so people can hear more?
Yeah, sure. So we're using John Callow's model of visual literacy, but we're also looking at other within-person variables that influence beliefs about confidence, for example. So I'm a motivation researcher. I'm always interested in looking at how young children's motivation develops over time and their confidence to engage with visual and digital, physical and digital artwork. So that's another kind of part of the framework theoretically, is looking not just at developing visual literacy, but in the confidence to apply those visual literacy skills to a whole range of different. And again, we've talked about, it's not just about dealing with artworks, it's engaging in visual stimuli from all kinds of materials that people encounter in their daily lives. And some of it is obviously a little bit suspect, and we want to develop those critical skills in children to think about how to engage and how to be critical and how to appreciate, of course, artworks, but also just how to be smarter with dealing with visual stimuli.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. That's great. We do have some questions in the chat that are coming up. The first one's an easy one for me to answer, and it's asking about if the slides will be shared afterwards. Rebecca, I believe the recording is going to be shared. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And we can share the slides too, if that would be useful for people.
We also have somebody asking if we could go back to the previous slide because it has the QR code on it. So thank you very much.
Yeah, of course.
And then just to talk, Ian, maybe if I could bring you in on this. Just the educational benefits of being involved in this project. If you're a school leader thinking about getting involved, why might that be a good thing for you, and why might it be good for your the young people in your school?
Well, as school leaders, you're busy people. I'm sure you're inundated by lots of requests to do research or innovation, some educational, some to do with the welfare of young people. But we think this project is a really exciting way to combine many of those aspects. So we think that the teachers will enjoy this. We're sure that the young people will enjoy it. We think it will increase engagement. This one thing we really hope, that this sort of work will make the youngsters feel more belonging to their school. We hope that attendance changes. We'll be nice to see that happen. But I think the most important thing is to have young people feel more confident, more able to read the world, to read art, but also to read, to think critically, and to be able to do that at a young age is really important in terms of their development, but also their critical faculty as they go on to school. There will later be a longitudinal element of this study where we'll be tracking some youngsters through into their Key Stage 3 setting. So also being able to see whether the visual literacy initiative has long-term benefit, I think would be really interesting for schools as well. So I think lots of exciting opportunities.
Thanks, Ian. That's great. Rebecca, maybe I can ask you, there's a question in the chat about how people can get involved. They're asking about primary schools getting involved, so maybe about whether primary schools or secondary schools can get involved, and also about if we have a brochure or anything that we can share with their community?
Absolutely. We've got lots of things that we will share with you. So please, primary schools, absolutely do get in touch. If you are in an area that has a middle school, or if you have a transition to secondary school, then absolutely please do get in touch. We would obviously be really, really keen to work with as many schools as possible. We have a flyer that is the one that you are seeing on your screen right now. We also have a one-page summary, as we know that you are busy people, and I will send all of these out to people who have both signed up to the webinar and also people who have signed up to the actual project proper as well. Could I just also build on one of the things that Ian was just mentioning just a minute ago, was we had quite a lot of comments that were in the form originally about what are the wider implications of this study as well. So thinking beyond obviously the art curriculum, which I feel like we've sort of covered quite a lot of detail, but I think something that's really important is to remember that the images that we're talking about are not just talking about how people can approach artwork. We're talking about how people can approach an image, and that would therefore include things, you know, from maps to charts to adverts, to having that confidence and competence to be able to look at something critically, I think is something which is a much underappreciated skill and needs to be a real priority, both in terms, as Rob mentioned, of it being something that we are critically exploring because there might be something that's not quite true that's going on inside it. We know that misinformation is a problem, but also if we're thinking about this from that sort of, you know, from geographical understanding, from seeing images as a route into working together, working collaboratively with others too. Thanks.
That's great. Thank you so much. Rebecca, if I can ask you to help us with some admin whilst I ask Rob another question. People are saying that the QR code is great, but it's hard to scan. So maybe if we could actually put the link directly in the chat as well, that would be really helpful to people. Rob, there's a longitudinal element to this. People are asking about primary schools, secondary schools. How does that work? When are they going to come in? What do you see going on with that?
Yeah, well, it's longitudinal in a couple of ways. First of all, we're looking at just change after engagement with our interventions. And so that's like a pre-test, post-test approach where we're going to measure something before. We'll look at the intervention and the engagement with artworks and the curricula that we have will be supporting. And then there's also that longer term longitudinal approach where we're looking at that transition from primary school, year 6, to secondary school, year 7. And that's a really important transition for a lot of children in terms of setting that path to the future success academically and in other areas. So we'll be looking at how involvement with visual literacy interventions has an influence on hopefully easing that path from year 6 to year 7. And so we'll look at that longitudinally. I should say that we're not just collecting quantitative survey data, although we are going to have a lot of that, and hopefully with several thousand children, but we'll also be looking in more depth through interviews with individual children, with teachers, to get that in-depth look at change over time and perceptions of critical visual literacy.
Thanks, Rob. And then just to be really clear, if you're a school leader who's got children in year 3, can they be involved? Year 4, can they be involved? Who can be involved in this?
Yeah, we're looking at Key Stage 2, and so we're looking at children in those years, which, sorry, I'm Canadian, but I think Key Stage 2 is 3, 4, 5, 6, and then that transition. What we're really hoping is that we're also involved with maybe single site schools where that transition is a little bit easier to track, because it's really hard when you look at year 6 students and often they go to lots of different schools and so forth. But if you have a setting where you have like a multi-academy trust or some kind of single site where we might be able to more easily, more readily track that transition, that would be really helpful.
Great stuff. We've got a question coming in about specialist settings and young people with EHCPs and special schools. So I'll try and answer that one before we move on. And Rebecca, people are asking about if they've been involved in Superpower before, so maybe you can come speak to that next. If you are a special school and interested in being involved in this project, then absolutely you are welcome. You are not only welcome, you're wanted and needed in our project. But what we recognise is that one special school is not like another special school, and therefore what we didn't want to do is just make one adaptive measure that could be used, because it may well be appropriate in your setting, but it's also quite likely not appropriate in your setting. So what we'll be doing is we'll be working with special schools individually to tailor a bespoke offer for them that will suit their learners, because we know that there's a real range across young people's needs, and therefore we need to tailor activities that suit those needs. But yes, the answer to those questions on there are yes, you're very welcome. You can be involved, and we're interested in how these interventions affect young people with EHCP. Well, Rebecca, do you want to talk about Superpower of Looking?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you have used Superpower of Looking previously, you are very welcome to join us, and we would love to have you on board too. Similarly, if you have used any other visual literacy tool, then please do feel free to sign up. It is just a variable that we will be looking at. We will ask you as staff about what you have done, how long you've done it for, things like that. So that way we've got that tracked as part of it. But absolutely, we would love to hear from you.
Great, thank you. Rob, there is another question here, which I'll ask you in a moment, which is about how you see language and art skills converging. But whilst you're maybe thinking on that answer, I'll just give a quick answer that says, when does this start? Well, in a way, it's already started. We've kicked the pilot off here in Oxford last week, and we're interested in schools that can sign up straight away. Realistically, we're likely to be doing some of our assessments with them in the new academic year. But yes, we are live and we're ready to go. So very excited to be working with people across the country. To that question, Rob, how do you see I've lost the question in my chat.
Oracy. Oh, that's fine. It's about the links between language skills and visual literacy. Well, we know that when we're asking children about visual literacy, we're often asking them to tell us about what they know and what they see. And so there's that link that's really hard to break between oracy and visual literacy. And so that's we'll be explicitly measuring oracy as well and looking at changes based on their engagement with visual literacy. And so we think that there's a link. We've seen some evidence that there's a link, but one of the first things we've done in the study is to develop scales to measure visual literacy that we'll be testing in terms of their reliability and validity. And so we'll be linking those with oracy skills, and there's a lot more measures of oracy that we can access. So that's another a part of this project.
Fantastic. Rebecca, I'm going to pass over to you if there's anything else that I've missed. I think I've been through those questions. We've reached half past. People may still have more to ask. If you do have questions to ask, please continue to put them in the chat. Rebecca, have I missed anything on our list?
No, I think we are absolutely there. So I would just like, again, to thank you all for your time. I know how precious it is. I will get everything sent out to you likely tomorrow. If you have any questions or queries, please do not hesitate to contact us. We are a friendly bunch. So thank you again for your time, and we look forward to speaking with you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks. Bye.